Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. I'm Pat Callahan. Glad you could be with us on Political Brew this morning. We're joined remotely, as we are these days, by John Richardson and Phil Harriman. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. Happy Mother's Day.
Thanks very much. A lot going on this week, so let's get right to it. Governor Mills has been under a lot of pressure to speed the reopening of Maine's economy. She took a couple of big steps this week. First, announcing an economic recovery commission, which will look into long-term boosting of the economy. Second, she announced a big agreement with Ibex Labs in Westbrook, which will get 5,000 more COVID-19 tests per week for the state, tripling the number of tests the CDC can do now. That's one of the benchmarks for reopening businesses and other aspects of the economy. So, Phil, do you think this is going to take a little bit of the pressure off that the governor has been getting from people in the tourism and the business and restaurant industry?
Perhaps. I think the good news that you mentioned, Pat, is the relationship with Ibex. That's a big breakthrough. I think that gives the governor a reason to say, I've been overly cautious out of public health. This announcement that we can do 5,000 tests with Ibex could give her the path she needs to say, let's open up, let's welcome businesses to get back in business. But on the other hand, so much time has been lost getting to this point that I'm afraid we're going to find out there are just so many small businesses that may not be able to restart the engine, so to speak. So I hope this commission that she's appointed is going to work double time and get to work and get recommendations in front of her because time is running out.
John, what are your thoughts on the actions the governor has taken this past week?
I think there's more consultation from the governor. I mean, I think she recognized that a centralized form of government isn't going to work for very long. I think she's done a great job because we have very few outbreaks and we have very few deaths in comparison to the rest of the country. But now she's seeing what the science is leading her to, which is with more testing, I can now open up the economy. I think it's a good move. I think by creating this task force and even consulting more with the legislature as she did, having her commissioner go before the public hearing is a good thing. It opens up, makes it a more transparent process, and it explains why she's had to do the things she's done.
You mentioned that Labor Committee meeting where the lawmakers were grilling Labor Commissioner Laura Fortman over problems in processing the historic levels of unemployment claims. Is this a preview of the political wedge issue that the Republicans are going to try to use not only in legislative races this year, but against Governor Mills in 2022 about trying to prove that Democrats can't be competent in running the government?
I suppose they can try. I mean, look, this is, we've had double the number of unemployment claims, double what we had during the Great Recession. It's been historic. We probably will never see anything again like this in our lifetime. Has the Department of Labor been slow in responding? Yes, I think they've been getting about 50,000 calls. They can only handle about 2,000 in that range. But this is historic, and I think they will play catch up. I think we will get reimbursements, and I think we'll get them retroactively. So while people are feeling the pain right now, I think they're doing their very best under the circumstances to address these issues.
But Phil, do you think Republicans are going to use this as a weapon in the fall?
Well, it depends on what it looks like when we have the lens of history, which is always 2020 hindsight, whether there are lasting reasons why people will be disappointed in the way the governor handled not only the pandemic outbreak, but especially at the Department of Labor, where people are unable to pay their bills, including their food and heat and light and rents and so forth. We can't see any further delays. My understanding is that Google was consulted and they said for $1 million in technology support, they could get the system running at the speed in which it needs to. And the commissioner said, we don't need to do that. That's a pretty wide opening for Republicans if this turns out to be a fiasco.
This week, the Maine Supreme Court ruled against Central Maine Power's challenge of an anti-corridor referendum, affirming the state's decision to validate that question to be on the November ballot and paving the way for Mainers to weigh in on it themselves. I guess the next question is, Phil, is work on the project continues because they're getting the permits they need. What impact is this referendum going to have, whether it passes or fails?
Oh, I think this is significant, Pat. If the question is now going to go forward, as the Supreme Court has said, for the citizens to vote on it, If it passes, I think that probably leaves CMP and Hydro-Quebec in a okay result, but nonetheless, the sting of how this all unfolded will not go unnoticed by many businesses around the state that may need to go through this permitting process. If it gets defeated in the fall and the project has to stop, now we're going to have another massive discussion about whether this was an unreasonable taking of a project that was properly licensed, and does the state of Maine owe CMP and Bangor Hydro-Quebec restitution? This could be huge.
Well, John, quickly on this, I mean, does this have force of law to stop the project, or is it just symbolic?
I think it has force of law. I mean, that's going to get parsed out, if you will, at the courts. But for right now, it's a bad sign, a bad piece of news for CMP. And as a result, I think that I'll predict that the referendum, obviously, the anti-corridor people will win. And this is going to be bad news for CMP. But I don't think it's fatal. I think that they'll come back to the drawing board after the referendum, and they'll need to provide benefits to Maine. That's what I think is going to happen.
All right, we got a lot more to talk about this morning on Political Brew. We'll do that in the next hour. News Center Maine is back after this. President Trump said the administration will continue to fight to overturn Obamacare completely, despite the pandemic that's underway. Senator Susan Collins, for one, says that Trump ought to instead open up a special ACA enrollment period for people who are now unemployed and losing their health insurance. John, President Trump's stance here, is that smart politics this year?
I guess if you hate President Obama as much as President Trump does, then of course, and you're that jealous of his popularity, then of course this makes sense. But it doesn't make sense because many of Trump's supporters will be driven to the Obamacare plan this fall as we hit a recession. So while he says one thing about the Obamacare plan, he's really hurting his own supporters who are going to be using this system of healthcare in the very near future. Makes no sense to me.
Bill?
Pat, I think we could all agree who are watching the Political Brew this morning that Obamacare came in and became very unpopular almost immediately. You didn't get to keep your doctor. You didn't save $2,500. I still think that mood is instilled in the American people. In order for President Trump to get rid of Obamacare, which is the question you were asking, I say to the president, what's the alternative? You got to put something out there that is better, simpler, cheaper than what we currently have. And if he doesn't have the answer to that, I don't think this goes anywhere.
And there has been no proposal. We're
Right.
3.5 years into his administration.
Right.
Locally, again, both Adrian Bennett and Dale Crafts, who are two of the Republicans running for Congress in Maine's 2nd District, have been trying to call out fellow candidate Eric Brakey to join them in denouncing Representative Justin Amash's run for president. This seems to be, Phil, a test of the CD2 candidate's Trump-supporting bona fides.
It sure does, but I bet most people sipping on their coffee this morning are asking themselves, who's this guy running
Justin
for president?
Amash,
right?
Right.
Who's Justin? I think at the root of it is, of course, is that President Trump was successful in winning the 2nd Congressional District of Maine, which gave him 1 electoral college vote. So the candidates in that district are, as you say, trying to out-Trump themselves to show they're supporting the president's reelection.
So, John, this is probably more style than substance, you think?
We're in the midst of a pandemic. We're moving towards an economic recession. People are losing their jobs in healthcare. And this is what the Republican candidates for the 2nd seat have to talk about. It seems to me there are more important issues that could be addressed than to try to go ahead and go after Brakey because he didn't go after Justin Amash, who has said that the Republican Party is broken and needs fixing. So to me, it's kind of silly, I think, as far as I'm concerned, this early in the campaign.
A few days ago, the Justice Department announced it was dropping the prosecution of Michael Flynn, a man who twice pleaded guilty to lying to investigators about his ties with Russia. John, what do you make of this?
This is very dangerous. I mean, this is a man who admitted twice to lying and lying to the Vice President of the United States. And what the signal is that somehow the Justice Department is a bad actor. The Justice Department can't be trusted. And as a result of that, you can get out of jail free if you know the President of the United States. I mean, you just look at Flynn and you look at others that have been able to either get pardons or be told that they probably will be getting a pardon. It's very bad for justice. It tells the average person, average citizen in this country, there's two separate standards. And that's not good when you need to be run by the rule of law.
Phil, what did you think when you heard this decision?
Thank God for us living in the United States of America, where the Constitution and the rule of law still prevails. The facts show that because of the way the department handled this investigation, based on erroneous, inaccurate, complete fabrication information that launched this whole investigation in the Russian collusion, it just shows that it never should have been investigated in the first place.
All right, let's wrap up with our winners and losers in politics this week. John, we'll start with you.
I would be remiss if I didn't say it was Mother's Day. I would be remiss if I didn't say to all mothers, happy Mother's Day. You are the political winners. You make this country run. Hold your mom tight. I don't have mine anymore. If you have one, when you get to, do so. The loser of the week, unfortunately, are the 14.7% of Americans. 20.5 million Americans are unemployed. And that is, to me, a sad, sad indictment on how we handled early on this coronavirus pandemic.
All right, and Phil.
I want to join everyone in saying Happy Mother's Day. Like John, I don't have my mom anymore, but I have a wife and two daughters who are mothers, and I want to celebrate them today. The political winner of the week for me is Ibex Laboratories, based in Westbrook, Maine. They have created a breakthrough for the state of Maine to get our economy going. They're my winner. The loser of the week, as we just talked about, is the way the Justice Department handled the investigation on Flynn. It never should have happened. They're my loser.
All right, John, Phil, thanks so much. Stay well. Thank you for being with us on Political Brew. We'll see you next time. News Center Maine is back after this.